So you're thinking about starting an online business, but maybe you don't have a degree in business, maybe you don't have years of experience working for a startup, and you're not quite sure what you need to get started. Well, as an ex-doctor turned social entrepreneur, I've definitely been in your shoes. And today in this video, I'm just going to walk you through the main things that you need to get started running an online business. And make sure you stick around till the end of the video because I'll be sharing some of my favorite business books for beginners, which I highly recommend that you read. But first, let's go through the 10 things that you need to get started. First thing that you'll need is obviously an idea. And that sounds pretty straightforward and simple, but actually there's a bit more to it. It's not just about having some random idea for a business. Business is mainly about solving problems for specific groups of people, and that can look like so many different things. If we take an obvious example like a law firms help people and businesses navigate and deal with the law. And since most people don't know about the law, that's a really useful business. A less obvious example might be an ice cream van. And you might be thinking to yourself, how can an ice cream van solve anyone's problems? Well, imagine it's a hot summer's day outside, you're chilling in your garden, the supermarket is a 20-minute walk away. Wouldn't it be nice to just pop outside of your garden and pick up your ice cream for £2 or £3? Not only is it convenient and solving the problem of the supermarket being far away, but it's also bringing people joy. And that's the thing with the problem. It doesn't have to necessarily be a physical, corporate thing like law. It can be something emotional, spiritual, psychological. And if you don't have an idea, then just do some research. Speak to people, do some online research, and keep your eyes and ears peeled open for potential problems that no one has solved yet. Once you have your idea, you then need to figure out your why. Ask yourself, why do I want to be the person who provides the solution to this problem? Building a business is super fun and exciting, but obviously it can get quite tough sometimes. So having your why is going to ground you, and it's going to be there to remind you of why you started in the first place. That helps reduce the likelihood of you quitting when things get tough. And that why doesn't have to be something super profound and deep. It can be something as simple as saying, I just want financial freedom, I want to help my family succeed, or I just really love the concept of business. Once you have your idea and your why in place, you then need to start conducting some research. The three main types of research you need to do are your ideal customer, market research, and competitor research. So let's start by talking about your ideal customer, or sometimes it's called your user persona. You have to have a really clear idea of who you're building the business for. And it really goes beyond just knowing their demographics, like their age, their name, or their gender. You really need to understand them deeply. You need to know about their dreams, their fears, their goals, their circumstances, what they do for work, what they do for fun, what they're struggling with, what they need help with. And the more you understand your ideal customer, the better off your business will be. At the start of the business, you might not have that much data to work with, so you might need to kind of make an educated guess as to who your ideal customer is. Then over time, as you do more research and you start to get to know people who are using your service a bit better, you can update that avatar as it goes along. But even at the beginning, you can start to understand your customer a bit more by doing surveys, interviews, focus groups, things like that. Understanding your customer is a really important part of the next research topic, which is market research. And market research is basically just understanding what your customer wants and the landscape of the area of business you're in. Like I mentioned before, you can do this by conducting surveys, user interviews, focus groups, but you also need to have an understanding of how big your market size is, which essentially means what's the number of people out there that might fit your ideal customer. Is it 10 people? Is it 1,000? 1 million? Because if your market size isn't big enough, then you might not have enough demand for your business, which may make it less likely to succeed. You want to also have an understanding of what pricing might work for the service or product that you're offering. Once you've done your market research, you then move on to doing competitor research. And this is where you want to see what your competitors are doing well and what they're not doing well. And this is a really important part of the process because it can also help you find a competitive edge. If there's something that they're not doing well, can you fill that gap? Can you do it better than they can? That can really help you stand out in your customers' eyes. The next thing you want to do is get an idea of the costs of the business. So firstly, how are you going to make money? And very simply put, the money that you make in the business is called your revenue. And when you minus your expenses from the revenue, that's your profit. And when you're first starting a business and you're thinking about the costs, it's good to stay focused on two things. Firstly, try to spend as little money as possible in the beginning. This reduces your risk and also gives you that leverage for being able to test out the idea before you spend all your life savings on it. And the second thing you want to do is remain focused on profitability. How can you run this business for as little as possible so that you can make the most amount of profit as possible? At the start, those two things should keep you afloat for a little bit, just until you see, is there any market demand? Have I found what we call product market fit? As you grow and later down the line, you may look for some sort of investment. But at the very beginning, you just want to see if people actually buy what you're selling and if you can make a profit. And if you have no money to actually start the business, then a really good way to start is crowdfunding. This is basically when you pitch your idea for the business to the public and they can either invest in the business or get something out of it, like the first version of the products. There are lots of crowdfunding platforms that you can use, and it's just a really good way to see, are people interested in this? Is it worth me spending more time, energy, and money in it? If you can, it's also a good idea to have some sort of business plan written down. And I know that sounds daunting, but there are loads of templates that you can use out there. I'll link one below in the description, and it can just help you put down in paper your goals and your plan and the direction you're going in. But with one caveat, don't get too bogged down with making this perfect. Firstly, it's not essential to have a business plan to succeed or to start. And secondly, things rarely ever go to plan. Things are always changing. The business plan itself is always changing. So don't spend too much time trying to perfect it. It's way better to just start and test it out in real life and see what feedback you get. Once you've got a good idea of what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and how much money it could make you, you then need to figure out, how am I actually going to tell people about this product? And that's essentially what marketing is. It's just telling people about your business. And there are literally thousands of ways that you can market your business. And for online businesses, usually something along the lines of social media content or social media ads is the go-to for most people. If you can manage to learn how to navigate social media, it's basically a free, massive source of organic marketing. Once you've figured out the marketing and how people are going to hear about your product, you then need to think about, how am I going to convince them to buy this product? And that's what sales is. And there are lots of different approaches to sales. Depending on the price of your product and how expensive it is and who you're targeting, you might need to jump on a call and basically convince people to buy. And you may need to spend a long time building a relationship with them before they do actually buy. If it's a simple, cheap product, then sometimes the sales can just be done through a simple landing page, which is basically a web page on your website. So it can really differ, and you need to figure out what kind of approach might work for your business. Once you have a better idea of the marketing and the sales, you then need to think about, what tech do you need to actually get it up and going. And most of the time for online businesses, you can get really far with just a laptop and a phone. So you may not necessarily need any extra tech other than that, but what you'll likely need is probably a bunch of different softwares. And these softwares might be for different things, like helping you with graphic design or marketing. But there are lots of really fantastic softwares out there that make it really easy to start an online business. I'll put a list of them in the description below. I really recommend you check them out. And although you're trying to spend as little money as possible, if there's a software at the start that can help you improve your processes or work more effectively, then it's definitely worth considering getting that software. Next, you'll need to think about the legal setup of your business. And this varies from country to country, but in the UK, for example, you can actually start by being a sole proprietor. That means you don't necessarily need to set up a business. You can just work as an individual. And that's a really great way to just test out the idea, see if it's valid, and then see if you want to take it from there. Once you're ready to commit, or you've made a certain amount of revenue, you might then want to set up a legal business. At some point, of course, you do need to get an accountant. They'll help you file your tax returns and help you deal with some of the legalities of the business. But again, there are lots of platforms and softwares and services that you can find for that. To tie into that, you might need to think about some of the legal documents that you need to start a business. And when you're first just starting, you really don't need that many. The one that may be most relevant to you is if you have a website for your online business, then you need to make sure that you have 3 documents on there. You need to have a privacy policy, a cookie policy with a cookie opt-in banner, and you need to have terms and conditions. Other than that, there aren't that many other legal documents that you need, and you can easily get templates for these policies from a website called rocketlawyer.co.uk. You can even get it for free during their 7-day trial. And as for any other legal documents that you might need, they have lots of templates for lots of different circumstances. The next thing that you absolutely must have before you start is the right mindset. You need to be really aware of the fact that failure and rejection are a super common part of this process, and that you will encounter it at some point or another. You need to shift your perception of failure and look at it as learning rather than something to be ashamed of. And you need to be resilient to rejection, because both will happen so much more than you think. But it's not necessarily a bad thing at all. It's always just redirection. You also need to be in a state of continual learning and experimentation. There's a concept called lean methodology that a lot of people follow when building a startup. And it's basically walking you through a feedback loop where you learn, test, implement, then learn, test, implement, learn, test, implement, and so on and so forth. And the idea behind it is that you need to treat your business as an experiment. And as promised, that's actually one of the books that I really highly recommend that you read. And the other recommendations I have that I think you should really consider reading are these ones. I'll add all the links to the books below so you can access them in the description. So once you have all of these things in place, you need to just start. And you need to start before you're ready. Because if you wait till you're ready, then you will literally never start. No one would. You will learn as you go along, and that's half of the fun. Don't focus on the mountain and the peak and the goal at the very end. Just focus on the next step that's ahead ahead of you. And something else to consider is there a way for your business to do good in the world? Can you give back to the community? Can you help improve the climate? If there's some way that you can tie in helping society or the environment within your business, it will add so much personal fulfillment to what you're doing. And this is a concept called social entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in doing good with your business and helping the world in some way, then I have another video on social entrepreneurship and why it's so important. I'll add a link to the video here. You can just click and watch it if you like. And if you want to see more of this content, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, I hope you have a lovely day and I'll catch you in the next video.